Blue Mind is a platform to raise consciousness and to elevate your performance and develop your physical and emotional health. We interview experts in mind and body, writers, sports people, entrepreneurs, and those with an inspiring story to tell to help us all raise our performance to the next level. So welcome to Blue Mind.
Hi guys, and welcome back to the Blue Mind channel. I'm Mark, Ed's here as always, and today I'm super pumped for this one because I met this guy a couple of years ago, and him and a couple of friends are doing some truly extraordinary things within the male personal development space. It's in terms of creating a safe environment and building resilience within men. He's a coach, he's a father, he's an entrepreneur. I attended an event that he did a couple of years ago, the Run 125, in association with the charity Calm. Rob, welcome. Great to have you on. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much, Mark. Thanks for inviting me on, lads.
Awesome. Let's get straight into it. So, Rob, if you could give our viewers a feel for who you are and the origin story, and I really want to talk to you about Uncommon Man, but I've got to hold my own excitement there for a little bit. But if we could just provide a platform for you just to share a little bit more about yourself, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, sure. So I guess first and foremost, I'm a man trying to do my best in life. And underneath that, I spend either time as a father to a couple of kids, in the process of building a well-being and talent development business, and also running Uncommon Man, which is our men's mental health group. And I'm a qualified coach as well, so I occasionally work with men on a one-on-one basis. Usually it's when they're at a sort of a bit of a transitional period of their lives, like changing career, or perhaps something's happened with a relationship, and I'll work with them for a period of time through that.
Awesome. So this particular conversation, I'd love to dig a little bit deeper and understand more about the Uncommon Man. What is the Uncommon Man?
So first and foremost, it was a space that myself and my friends, Mark and Josh, wanted to set up quite selfishly for ourselves. Practically speaking, what it looks like is a group of about 30 or 40 men meeting up every month at a really beautiful space in Liverpool Street, London, and going through 2 hours together where we do different sorts of exercises, not physical exercises, but exercises to help everyone connect, share what's going on in their lives, reflect on their own life and their experience, so that they can hopefully gain a bit of clarity, a bit of connection, a bit of momentum. And we do that in a number of ways. So we might do a themed coaching exercise, which might be about, how we are responding to stress in our lives at the moment and reflecting on what is weighing us down potentially or holding us back. We use breath work exercises, often at the end of the session, to kind of prompt the guys to release a little bit of emotion. So we get music pumping. Josh leads that part, and the guys often, it can lead to some quite big emotional releases and all sorts of other things. And there's a lot of casual conversations that are going on at the beginning and end of that session as well. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. Do you have when people come to you, do they see some content and think that looks interesting? Do you get referrals? I mean, kind of guys are coming to you, and what do you think they're coming for? Or is it QC, or what's the
It's a
call to action, do you think?
it's a real mixture. So we've got some guys who come because their partner has bought them a ticket.
Oh,
So literally, yeah, yeah. So they've seen it online. Um, Usually, it's a female partner, and they've seen this online and thought, oh, these guys are talking about their emotions a bit. I think you need to do a bit of that, and we'll almost, prompt them to go. There's quite a lot of those guys that come along. We have guys, yeah, who see us on social media and think, oh, you know what, maybe it might seeing an image or a video clip or a quote that we've posted might prompt them to think, yeah, you know what, I think I could do with exploring some of this stuff. Um, Sometimes we had one guy that came because he had heard, he worked in the workspace where we do the session, and he had heard us at the end of a breath work all doing this massive scream, which we always do at the end of the session. And he had thought, what the hell was that? Asked reception, and they'd pointed them in our direction. He came and checked it out, which was awesome. And he's been back a number of times. So it's a big mix, to be honest. But to answer your question, Ed, about why do I think they are there? Well, often they will answer that question from the start. So we stand in a circle and just introduce ourselves very casually and just ask them to give a word or a phrase, like how they're feeling and why are they here. And there'll be a whole host of reasons, from going through something very tough. It could be an addiction of some description. We have a lot of guys who are in recovery that have come. Could be like a relationship issue. It could be a bereavement, or it could just be guys who want to just understand themselves on a slightly deeper level. And perhaps they think that they're not quite reaching their potential and they want to explore this in a new way. So yeah, it's a real mix.
the real mix. And how long have you been doing the Liverpool Street events, and what are you learning as you go through? Do you do them every month, every week, or
Every month, yeah.
okay? And is it on what, lunchtime? Is it?
No, it's the first Tuesday of every month, and it's from 6:30 till 8:30 in the evening. So it gives the majority of people a chance, when if they work typical office hours, to come after work. And yeah.
And are you getting people coming back more than one
Oh
session, or
yeah.
okay?
Yeah, we've got a crew of guys who will come every month, if they can make it, which is really cool because we've been going for 2.5 years now, and so we're really there's proper friendships, connections that have been formed in the group. A lot of guys have met up outside the group as well, which is really cool. Because that is another reason why the guys come. Because I think as men, when we get older, the trend is that we actually our
Yeah.
connections reduce, right? Well, we suddenly, or you end up connecting with people that you end up spending time with, other men or other people that you wouldn't necessarily pick to spend time with. It might be people who you know through your kids, for
Yeah.
example. It might be usually it's people that you work with, right, that you end up spending the majority of your time with, or and there's beers after work or whatever you do tend to be with those people. So I think, yeah, forming some new friendships and connections is another reason why a lot of the guys come.
Sure. In the 2.5 years, what are you learning about sort of masculine traits? Is there any? I mean, you've mentioned the commonality of why these guys are coming.
Yeah.
Finding that, I mean, I've attended Andy's Man Club on a number of times.
Yeah, brilliant.
We have people, which is a slightly different concept to what you guys are doing, but I went out of curiosity and to share and to listen and see what how they were facilitating. There was many men there who had sat in the drive 5, 6, 7 times, who had driven to the event, who'd sat outside in the car park, terrified to go in. Literally had been, and again, had been prompted by their wives. They were suffering problems, and they thought this would be a good step. They'd seen the advertising. Are you finding a lot of people hesitate before they come? I guess is the first question. And then are you learning a lot about how men congregate together and how they open up when in that circle? Maybe you can comment on those 2 points.
Absolutely. So for your first question, I know from hearing from a lot of the men that yes, they often have anxieties before coming to their first session, especially the first session. Usually that is reduced quite a lot once they've met people and they know what to expect. Um, and I know that there have been guys that, similarly to Andy's Man Club, where they might be waiting in the car park. We don't have a car park, but they might have signed up and on the day decide, I just can't, I don't feel up for it, which is absolutely fine. Like, sometimes you got to be in the right headspace to go to these things. However, we send a reminder email on the day, and at the end of that email, usually it will say something like, if you're on the fence and you're feeling a little bit anxious about coming, turn up and just worry about that, and the rest will take care of itself. Because we kind of pride ourselves on being a very welcoming group, very inclusive group, and the majority of the men's groups out there are. But we really, really try and emphasize that. And we also want to be a space that if you've never done any of this, in inverted commas, men's work, deeper men's work, where you're kind of shirtless in the woods, beating your chest and howling at the moon, then you can come and do this stuff having never really even spoke to anyone about your emotions before. Like, you can still come and do this session. So it's a great introductory session for people who are beginning to explore this stuff. Or we have a lot of guys who have done a lot of this kind of work and reflection and coaching, etc. And it becomes like a regular self-care space. And then in answer to your second question about what did you say about what am I it was what am I learning, what are we learning about how men kind of congregate? Well, initially, on reflection, before we set this up, it was like, okay, typically the men that I know anyway, and I'm speaking as a heterosexual man who likes sport. Typically it's like you go to like a sporting event, or you might go to the pub or something like that. Like, those tend to be the spaces. It's very much usually focused around alcohol, and usually most of the deepest conversations that you have with your friends are when you're 6 or 8 or more pints deep, and they're never actually,
Yeah.
that you're either kind of exaggerating potentially how you feel, or it's just not a sort of a true connection, so to speak. So we wanted just to create an alternative. So it's as much a social space as it is any kind of coaching space. And I think more and more men are seeking this out now. I think people are a little bit bored of it, a little bit bored of everything being surrounded by alcohol. From work, from partnering with companies as well, we know that a lot of people now are requesting social events that don't have alcohol there. Like, let's go and do something else. Let's not have everything, partly because they don't want to speak to their drunken colleagues, potentially. Like, they want to speak to them, but maybe in a different environment. They're not quite on the same page there. So I think we're going to see an increase of this. I think we're going to see, and we were speaking, Ed, shortly before we started the call, around that sense of adventure as well, which I really like that you were saying. And I think that that's going to be an increasing thing that we see with men seeking out social events that are adventure related as well, which I think is a great thing to do.
Amazing. If you don't mind, I just want to highlight a couple of things here, which I believe are absolutely vital for anyone listening. So, first of all, the sense of connection, because if you're not aware, one of the Rob clearly articulated that connection, especially for men, tends to reduce as we get older, and loneliness is a real issue for most men, and lack of friendships. So to provide a space where not only are you feeling heard, that you can go on to find friendship, find connection with other men, and have mutual interests and hold conversations without alcohol is phenomenal. Is absolutely phenomenal. And I really liked what you were saying, that more and more people seem to be wanting this, especially men, this non-alcoholic social events. People are starting to think deeper. They're craving connection. These are human needs, basic human needs that perhaps we haven't. I know that I didn't for many a year prioritize.
Mm. Yeah. And I think alcohol is it's so ingrained in our society. And, you know, I've got a family history of some quite high alcohol use, and I saw the effects that that had on, you know, various members of my family. And I saw my dad um go through, you know, he lost his dad when he was, as in my granddad died when he was 55, and he was an alcoholic, and so he lost his dad in the same year that I was born. And so I watched him completely change his relationship with alcohol, which really impacted me. You know, he drank quite a lot. He rugby player, all of that stuff, worked in the city, and alcohol was just in his life, kind of whether he liked it or not, all the time. And I saw him in his 50s completely make a decision, basically, that he was going to completely change his relationship with alcohol, and it had a massively positive effect on how he felt, and he lost weight and he performed better at work and blah blah blah. And I think that had a real impact on me, so I was very
Mm.
fortunate to witness that. And I think a lot of men aren't as fortunate to see that, because they might have had an alcoholic parent, for example, which is extremely tough, and have to go through all of that. So I do think there is a big shift happening, which is much needed.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, my children are much more aware of alcohol use than I was at their age, and you know, I think the UK is drowning in booze. I really do, and it's getting better. But you know, we're a culture of self-soothing, self-sabotaging drinkers. I mean, that's just the reality of it. And whether it's binge drinking or a bottle of wine every night, you know, it's just not going to help you, is it? Let's be honest. Whether you're going out after work, and I did 20 years of probably a lot of drinking too much and binge drinking, and still occasionally do. And I wish I didn't. But it's a lot less than it used to be in my 20s and 30s. And I think they're just systematically processed to think that enjoyment is about being the last guy at the bar, you know, 1,
Yeah.
2 o'clock, and it creates bad choices, it ruins your relationships, and ultimately it's not very good for your health, whether it's cardiovascular or cancer or anything else. So, and you know, I think when we're talking to guys, and you know, one of the things we say is that the very base, if you're struggling, one of the basic things you should do is look after your nutrition, stop taking toxins, exercise daily, get outside. I mean, just the basic kind of self-care tools, and obviously talk and communicate and ask for help and express that you're suffering. And these are just basic skills that I think people are getting to understand well within, you know, they're all free pretty much. They're well within their means of capability, but yet still many people are not doing the basic things. So I guess the question I've got is, you know, what is it? What is it? It's not really a question, but are you see? And when I talk to Mark about it, there's a big difference between people who are sitting in a proactive state of mind who want to change and do the basics, and there's a big difference between people who are sitting in a kind of semi-victim mindset, and they're generally the people that are not doing the basic things. So they may be depressed, but they're still drinking. And it, you know, can you reflect on that a little bit? And again, it's not said with judgment, because we're all at different stages, and people maybe don't understand things, they don't have the skills. Perhaps you can reflect on that a little bit.
Yeah. So I think, based on genetics and our past experiences, we can be predetermined to potentially have a, you know, it comes down to that growth mindset or fixed mindset. And there'll be people who naturally feel like, yeah, if I want to make a change in my life, I can do it. I can take control and I can change my habits and all of that. And then there are people that write stories about themselves and say, this is who I am. I struggle to stick to an exercise routine. I can't eat healthy. And you can't get any further until you've looked into those stories and why am I telling myself this and why am I keeping myself stuck in this place.
Mm.
You got to start there. And so the first step is like just an awareness piece, like what is coming into my head, like what am I hearing myself say to myself and about myself, and just writing that down. Like that's a really powerful first step. And then reflecting on, well, is that even true? And what, if a very common one is, I'm not consistent, I don't remain consistent. Okay. Well, where in your life are you consistent? Or maybe you're consistent at work. Maybe you show up every day to work and you get your projects done. Okay, well, you are consistent. You can be consistent. So there's something here which we can look into more, whether it's related to your eating habits or related to your exercise, to unpick as to why you're struggling to stay consistent in that area. But I also think that we get stuck in these cycles and these patterns that sometimes we need to shake ourselves up to get out of it. Now, sometimes that can happen when we get stuck in that rut and the pain becomes so much that that does the job for us. It's the idea of
Yeah.
like rock bottom, right? Leading to some kind of change. But ideally, we don't want to get to that point. So we can do things like go to Ibiza with a bunch of guys and do some amazing adventures and have some great conversations and think deeply and reflect and spend some time in nature. That sort of thing can have that effect. Or it might be going to an uncommon man session and talking about something for the first time ever to this stranger who for some reason isn't judging you and he's compassionate and all the rest of it, and then doing some breath work and all of that. And I've had personal experience of that where go back to the drinking. I was a big binge drinker at university and in my 20s, drug use that came off the back of that. And I was still these habits, even after becoming a father, I still had these bingy, big, boozy nights that were in the tank occasionally. And I hated it.
Yeah.
Everything I've ever regretted came off the back of that. And I had an uncommon man session where I heard a guy talk to me about, I'm thinking about just canning the booze for a little bit. And I was like, oh, yeah, nice. I kind of like twigged in my head, like, oh, yeah, okay. And then in the breathwork session, I had this big sort of emotional release. I cried a bit, I shouted a bit. And I had this moment of clarity, like, just fucking stop the booze, get a handle on it, take control of this, because it's not who you want to be.
Yeah.
And that moment of clarity came from getting myself into another state, a state which made me feel like I could make a change. So those people that feel stuck, that feel like they can't make a change, that are feeling down or depressed, and yet they're still doing the same habits, the first step I'd say is getting yourself into a different space, a different state, and reflecting and thinking deeply into that.
I wonder with the breath work, is it the fact that it's a male community, or is it the fact that your breath work is triggering some kind of nervous system reaction, and it's a different kind of, it's a deep meditative. So I've done some breath work and I know it can release some quite powerful feelings.
Yeah.
I don't particularly understand the science behind it, but there's definitely an unlocking of things. And sometimes they're very positive, sometimes they're quite emotional, sometimes they're negative. So I wonder if it's the combination of male support, a different environment, and also the breath work that's creating the space. It's like, as you say, it's that choice to invest in something, not sitting in the pub at 6 o'clock doing the same old crap, which you do habitually. And so do all men, I mean, my general conclusion is men only need, like, men hit rock bottom or not far off. And then they go, okay, now I need to do something about it. And I'm fascinated by how people can be more proactive, because there's a sort of delusional thing with men's behavior, maybe with women's as well, that, oh, it'll be all right, that happens to other people and I'm okay. And you as you say, you tell yourself stories. until eventually something breaks. And I wonder what, what are the patterns that if people are watching this to be helpful to them, and they think, oh well, it's not. I'm not a drinker. I've not got a problem. My relationship's fine. What would you say to those people that are questioning it, but they're not there yet?
I'd say well done for questioning it, first of all. It's first of all, it's you've got some kind of awareness there that you're starting to think about it. And that's brilliant because a lot of guys might not have that. They might be blind to it.
100%.
And that's where good friendships really benefit you, because you have friends that would hopefully call you out or call you forward, you might say, to demand more from yourself. But I would say that if you're feeling that you need to make a change, or perhaps maybe you're thinking, because it's very common to think, this isn't feeling quite right, this is negatively affecting me, but I'll do it tomorrow, right? That's the very common thing. So they don't want to address it today. And I've been there many, 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 many
Yeah,
times.
yeah.
You have to just have an honest moment with yourself and say, how many times have I put this off? How many times have I put off making this change? Because I can remember 5 years ago when I wanted to make this change, or where I thought I was drinking too much, or I thought I wanted to get in shape, and I still haven't done it. So am I going to wait another 5 years? Am I going to wait another 5 years? And I think this is where, like, without getting too deep, but actually reflecting and thinking about death can actually be a really powerful thing,
Yes,
because you
yes.
start to go, okay, I'm lying on my deathbed. How am I feeling about my life?
Mm.
How am I feeling? I had a big experience whereby my granddad died, and it was on a day that I was supposed to be at my grandparents' house. And what contributed to his death is that the paramedics couldn't get him down the stairs because he was a big guy. And if I'd been there, I could have carried him down the stairs. Now, I got through that thought process and worked through that. I was fine. But it made me reflect very deeply on, okay, if a family member or a grandparent or a friend dies tomorrow, what's left unsaid? And you get that moment of clarity straight away, and you should just say it. You should send that message. You should take them out for dinner. You should surprise them with a gift, whatever it is. But the same is true of yourself. So if you find yourself with a terminal illness tomorrow, which can happen to anyone, what are you regretting? So reflecting on that makes you go, okay, fuck, okay, no, I want to do this. I want to make a change. I want more from the life that I've got left. So yeah, a lot of it comes back to that, and just having that realistic view on what we all have, which is a finite amount of time.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Mark, do you
Absolutely
want?
brilliant. I
Go on.
was, thanks, Ed. Thanks. While listening to Rob just there, it reminds me of what we talk a lot about, Ed, in terms of leaving nothing important unsaid.
Yeah,
And that's a very powerful exercise that you were referring to in terms of thinking about your deathbed. And there's also another one about picturing your funeral and people standing up and talking about you and what they would say. And for us as fathers, I've done it a few times, and it's extremely powerful to close your eyes and think about your son or your daughter standing up and describing the person that you were. And and that, if that doesn't give you an indication or a vision for your future, the person that you want to become, not much will. I really liked what you were saying, Rob, about practice observing your thinking and your feeling. Really start to just listen. And tracking behaviors is such a great one. You mentioned there about 5 years something was coming up for you, and it will, when you put yourself in environments as well, where, like you guys have done with Uncommon Man, and you're building a group of people, suddenly you've got people around you that are holding you accountable as well. right? And are you being congruent with the person that you said that you wanted to become? Because that is extremely powerful, and from my experience, only accelerates the growth process. Ed, did you? There's
Absolutely.
something that I wanted to. There's something I wanted to, if possible, just dive a little bit deeper into. But Ed, do you have a question to mind that you wanted to quickly bring to the table?
It was just to endorse what you said. I think it's incredibly powerful to think about death. And I think it's actually it demystifies it and destigmatizes it, and it's going to happen to all of us. And I talk very openly about death with my parents. I'm blessed they're still alive, and my own family and friends, because it is the best defining. It encourages gratitude. It gets you through slumps. You seize the day, you try and do your best, and I am very conscious of leaving a legacy, and I think that's so important for all people to think about that, because it's frankly all that we have, right? It's how will you be remembered, and did you help some people, which is probably why we're all sitting here talking about this at 7-8 o'clock at night on a Thursday. We want to make a difference, because that's important, that we want to help people, and that is legacy. And hopefully it will make a difference, and we can feel proud, or people can feel proud of us, which is a very human, very basic human need, that kind of need for validation. So I just wanted to endorse and thank you for saying that, because a lot of people jump aside of the conversation of death, that it's all too morbid and depressing, and it's going to happen. So thank you for that. My question would be, if you are sitting here watching this, and I think you've already touched on it, and something's wrong, you've listened to what we've said, and you want to go about change, what kind of tips would you? And you've mentioned maybe investing in some time. Can you give some guys some tips about how they can start to break down what might need to be fixed, maybe? And again, I've put you on the spot there, but whatever comes to mind.
If you don't mind, Rob, I'm gonna butt in there and give you a bit more time to think about it, just because I truly want to reinforce the powerful experience of attending an Uncommon Man event, because while I was listening to Ed and to Rob, especially about that element of anxiety, and some people have experienced it going to the event and, oh, I'm not sure if I want to go. I was that person. I booked a ticket on my own. I'd heard about the event through Amicable, the divorce app. There was a brilliant marketing manager there who had recommended it because her partner had gone. I booked a ticket. I arrived at the big door, just opposite Liverpool Street Station, the Uncommon building, and I, as someone who is self-diagnosed with social anxiety disorder, I was seconds away from not going, and I'm so pleased that I did, because Rob touched on it. Extremely welcoming. You get in the lift, you go up the lift. I couldn't tell you exactly which floor it is, Rob. You'll be able to say.
Floor 7.
Floor 7. But as soon as you walk in, there is such a feeling of peace and calm, and even though strangers, smiling faces, extremely welcoming, asking you questions. And Rob touched slightly on how they start the conversation, but from my own experience, you go there, you're surrounded by people you don't know. People are taking it in turns. Men are taking it in turns to introduce themselves, and there's a projection on the wall of many different words, and you're asked, how are you feeling, or what's a word that you would associate with perhaps how your week's been. And there's this sense of vulnerability and courage as each man stands up or speaks out and says a word. And from there, Rob, Josh, Mark, they say some very powerful words, make everyone feel extremely comfortable, and we break out into small groups. I'm not sure if the process is still the same. You'll be able to let us know. But for me, that was a real turning point, just in terms of how powerful it was being in a small group of three, breaking down the larger group into a small group of three, where you're given the safe space to talk just for 5-6 minutes on a topic that is continuously in your mind at the moment, and you just vet it, the combination of venting, you feel extremely safe just being heard by two other guys. You have no idea who they are, their backgrounds. There's no judgment. They they don't respond. They're not there to fix you. They're not there to judge you. They're not there to criticize. They're just there to listen. And after your go, you then listen. And just allowing someone that 5-6 minutes to open up and just, I use the term, empty out, is incredible, absolutely incredible for the individual. And from there, you'll then progress into the breathwork exercise, which is just, oh, gosh, unforgettable experience the first time. And in short, without spoiling it for anybody, I would highly recommend it. To the point where I remember lying on the floor, going through Josh's breathing exercise, thinking, this is absolute BS. This is absolute rubbish, but I'll go with it and see what happens. And then suddenly losing the feeling in my right hand, and it's contracting inwards, my fingers. I'm losing the feeling in my fingers. My arms start raising, going closer towards my chest, like I'm giving myself a hug, this cramp in both hands. And like, what is happening? And the experience is truly unforgettable, and the emotional release of the scream and this deep sense of connection. And that you used some brilliant words earlier, Rob, about learning more about yourself, because I was definitely that person who had done the work, or is still doing the work, for 5 years on themselves, and I was looking to explore a new activity that would help me learn more about myself. And boy, did I on that day. So I just wanted to acknowledge the experience and and healthily promote the positive impact that you, Mark, and Josh are having on the male community. And you're very heavily involved in terms of actively getting involved with the breathwork as well, of course, Rob, right?
Yeah, look, Mark, first of all, I appreciate you saying all that. And I was going to ask you as well about your experience, because obviously we get a chance to natter a little bit at the end, but there's sort of 30 other guys I'm trying to check in with. So I'm really glad that you laid that out for me. And I get stuck into the breath work. Sometimes I'll assist Josh a little bit. And like I said, I've had some of the biggest moments of clarity that I've had during the session. So like I said, it was set up selfishly for ourselves. And if other guys can benefit from it, then fantastic. And they seem to be so far, which is really, really great. And the bit that you picked out about speaking for 5 or 6 minutes, the emptying out, it's crazy how beneficial that can be, and how rare it is to speak uninterrupted for 5 or 6 minutes without someone chiming in or giving you advice. And you end up almost coaching yourself. So you say, I'm struggling with this, and I think it's because of this. And oh, actually, do you know what? Now that I say that, maybe it's actually a bit of that. You do know what? It is that. Yeah. And you start coaching yourself. All this stuff is free, right? You can go to a coach, fantastic coaches, but you might pay hundreds of pounds or something. But a lot of the benefits are there for you for free. So yeah, no, thanks for sharing that all, Mark. And Ed, in response to your question about what would be the steps to take if a man was wanting to make a bit of a change, perhaps. There's a number of different things. I think first of all, an expansion on that awareness piece might be to divide your life into segments. So you might say relationships. You could do it in a number of ways. I'll list a few that might work, but like relationships, career, fun or leisure, mental well-being, personal development. You could go into sleep, how you're fueling your body, how I'm moving my body, and you can come to this sort of 8 or 10 areas of your life. You can then reflect on those areas and say, okay, how satisfied or fulfilled am I in each of those areas out of 10? And give it a number. And you can make like a pie chart almost and shade them in. If you're a visual person or if you're numerical, you can do a number. You'll do it in a spreadsheet if you want. And you start that process of separating your life out into these different areas. And you might suddenly go, okay, relationships. Right, okay. Well, that relationship is bringing that number down. That relationship is bringing that number up. Where am I at? Okay. So you start to reflect on those specific areas. So you're getting a little bit more granular. Then at that point, you can look at your life as a whole, right? So you can see where are the areas that I'm potentially neglecting. Oh shit, my movement is a 3. Okay. My career is an 8. Okay. So you just start to get a bit clearer on where you're at. And then the next step would be to visualize or consider what a score of 10 might look and feel like realistically in each of those areas. So a 10 for me with sleep might be that I'm sleeping 8 hours and it's uninterrupted and I'm feeling fresh as I wake up in the morning, right? That's a pretty obvious one. But what does relationships look like? Okay, well, maybe it's that I'm seeing my parents every month and chatting to them, properly for at least every couple of weeks. I'm connecting and going on a date with my partner at least once a fortnight. I'm spending time with my kids on the week, whatever it is, right? You start to visualize what that area of your life could be like. Then the next step, and this is super important, is what is the one action you can take in that area that is going to move it from, let's say you scored it a 4, it's going to move it from a 4, not to a 10, but to a 4.2 or a 5, right? What is that small action that you can do next week that's free? It's the first action. And so in relationships, that might be speak to Roz, who's my wife, and book in a date night. Or it might be, if it's movement, it might be go for a walk before I start work on Monday morning. Whatever it is, the one simple action. And then you suddenly have this list of 8 very achievable, very straightforward actions that they're not scary, right? They almost certainly won't be scary or intimidating because you've broken it down to just that first step. And then what happens is the more you take those little steps, you start to build momentum, you start to rewire your brain and go, okay, I've taken myself from a 4 to a 4.2. Well, what happens when I get to a 5 or a 6? Okay. So you start to rewire, you start to believe in yourself, you start to think that I can make a change. But it can be so daunting to think, I'm overweight. How am I going to get super fit and a resting heart rate of this, or whatever your metric you're thinking about, or I want to be in a relationship and I'm not, I don't even know where to start. Okay, well, what's one thing that I can do in that area? Um, is it okay? I'm finally going to download an app. I'm going to give it another go. I'm just going to create my profile. That's going to be the first step. All right. Whether you're for or against apps, right? Or so do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And
It's
and
the
then
zone of proximal development.
yeah, exactly.
Totally see it. I mean, have you got more to say, Rob? I think we cut you off, but
No, but that's basically, I was going to say the final component, which really helps, which we touched upon already, is the sense of get yourself accountable. Talk to someone about this. One of the most powerful things you can do is try and find at least one person that you can communicate what you want to do, what you want to achieve, how you want to improve,
Love it.
and they can check in with you. Or I have I have a friend of mine who we every week we write down how much alcohol we've drunk, and we put it on a WhatsApp group, and um, we put it all there. So we have that awareness, so we have the accountability. And if one of us has had a few extra, we might check in and say, okay, what happened? What brought that on about? I have another guy who I check in with once a fortnight on business. He's starting a property company. I'm doing my own stuff, and we dive
Great.
into all of that sort of stuff. I would not function if I didn't have these spaces that I create for myself, and I didn't have
Fantastic.
these people that I can go, talk about the struggles and all of that sort of stuff. So I think
Great advice.
yeah, that's the piece. And if you don't have anyone like that, there are people who are very well trained that can help you for a relatively small amount of money when you consider the value that it can bring to your life,
Yeah.
whether that's a coach or a therapist or a personal trainer, someone who is an expert in their field who can provide a sense of accountability as well. They are a phone call or a message away. So if you don't have anyone in your life, you just reach out to one of those.
Love it, Rob. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, great advice, Rob. Just a couple of thoughts that came to mind. I mean, that pie chart approach, I used it about probably 6 years ago, and it was really helpful to make me understand what my priorities were, things that were important to me, that I could action, and I grew more confidence from changing certain habits and putting more effort into seeing family and things. And you're right, it helps to it's all very good being exceptional at your career and living in a nice house. You've got poorly functioning relationships and self-sabotage and addictive tendencies, and you're trashing all the other stuff in your life. It doesn't really matter, does it? It's kind of going to torpedo. So I think it's great advice, and I think if people take some time on their own to go through that, go for a walk for 5 hours and think about those things, and spend time on your own. And the only other point I'd make is that when you're forming those new habits, those new priorities, is that for me, I had to let go of a lot of old relationships, a lot of friendships, a lot of behavior, a lot of concepts I was telling myself about who I was, who I thought I was. And that is really difficult, particularly if you're in a situation where, as you said at the beginning of the conversation, where your social network is around work, it's around maybe the family environment, the school kids, whatever it is. And I think people are living in different enclaves in London, or they're living out in Surrey, and their family life, they might not necessarily be with the people they feel at home with or feel comfortable and connected with. And that's where that need to change comes, where it's a really hard step to let go of some old patterns and people, and be brave enough to go into new environments like your Uncommon Man workshops, like signing up for therapy, like going to a yoga class, like going to a men's talking group, like not going out on a Thursday and Friday and drinking 8 pints and talking bollocks to the same people every week. So if you get this, if you don't want the same results, you've got to change the habits. And I think we all know that now. It's just I just wish I'd have known it 20 years ago or whatever. But so I think if anyone's 30, 50 minus 20, and they're listening to this, you will only change when you want to change. And I would just urge people to, and again, I'm not suggesting everyone was making the same mistakes I was, but if you spend time on your own, prioritize what you want to improve that feels good in your intuition, and forget what everyone else is doing and telling you, and go with what you feel is the right steps to take. And if you're not getting the support, maybe it's time, as you say, to find different support. So anyway, that was just a bit of a reflection. Sorry to go on.
No, not at all. And if you take a step and you find that it's not the right step, perhaps, well done for taking a bloody step, and take a different step in another direction. But if you just stay there, stuck, not trying anything, not doing anything, then yeah, you're right. Nothing will change. Nothing will change. And that point you said about age as well, it's like you'll only be as young again as you are today. Like that, you're there's no rewinding the clock. So you're in the best possible place you can be at this point in time, right? So starting there, just start there.
Well, I've got slightly less time than you youngsters, so I need to get a crack on. But on that note, what's the future hopefully hold in store for you, Rob? Where do you want to take your men's work, your business, your personal objectives? Do you want to just reflect on that? I've got to jump off, unfortunately, now in a few minutes once you've answered. But just before you do, I'm delighted to meet you. I will come for a session in Liverpool Street, and Mark has been on at me. Mark has been on at me for about 2 years, and I keep batting him off. Maybe I'm scared. I don't know, but I have done it. I have done some breath work, and I loved it. So I will come. But yeah, so I'll jump off. But please answer the question, and I'll say goodbye after.
Yeah, well, yeah, Ed, it's been a pleasure speaking with you and meeting you. But look, very, very briefly, I don't necessarily know where this is going to go. I will just continue leaning into it if it feels right. And at the moment, it feels right. And so we're going to keep investing time and energy into it. However, it's very important, and we've had these conversations, that we don't burn ourselves out or overcommit, because fundamentally, long term, we're going to be able to make the most impact by continuing to do it, rather than having this intense period of a year or so and then going, oh, that was too much, right?
Yeah.
So I'm in this for the long term. I just my kind of personal mission is to help people enjoy their lives, and that kind of comes in many forms, and whatever I do in my life will be in that vicinity in some way. And at the moment, that's in men's work, and it's in corporate well-being and a bit of coaching. And for now, I'm enjoying it, and I'm going to just continue doing and learning and carrying on.
Great.
Love that, Rob. Absolutely love that. Ed, excellent questions. Rob, brilliant to see you. Fascinating conversation. I'm definitely going to get myself down to Uncommon Man again, and I'll bring Ed with me. Where can people find you? Where can if I'm a business owner, if I'm a manager who wants to improve wellness within the corporate space, wellness at work, or if I want to get to an Uncommon Man event, where's best to connect with you?
So my corporate wellbeing company is called ThatDay. And so our website is thatday.uk, not .co.uk, just .uk. And Uncommon Man is, let me remind myself, uncommonman.co.uk, and you can sign up to the mailing list, and we push out the events there, or we host all our events on Eventbrite. So if you follow us on Eventbrite, you get sent them as well. So if you search Uncommon Man, it usually comes up.
Brilliant.
Fabulous. It's been a pleasure, Rob. Thank you for your time, and sorry about the admin and the tech.
No problem at all. I've been there many, many times. Do not worry.
All right.
Yeah, it's great to speak to you both.
You are listening. Follow Rob. Follow Mark. Follow Josh. Follow Uncommon Man. They're doing some absolutely brilliant stuff. If you like this conversation, share it with someone that you feel would benefit from it, and of course subscribe to the channel again. Rob, thank you so much, mate. Great to see you.
Been a pleasure speaking to you both, and well done for the work you're doing as well.
Thank you very much. Take care, guys.
Take care. Bye.